This morning I read a book. I don't know how many pages it was because it was on a Kindle. It's kind of long. I've been meaning to read it for a long time because it came very, very, very heavily recommended to me. The book is called Fill These Hearts, and it is actually a Christian book. Now, it was interesting to read because I was raised Christian, but I don't necessarily define myself for or against that kind of identity. The book itself was all about it is okay to be human. It is okay to have sexual desire. It is okay to XYZ. And then here is a prescriptive way to behave in order to attain this promise that we set out before you. So, kind of my response to it is that there are some really, really profound things in there, but then equally as much, there's just so much salesmanship. There's so much, here's this thing that will fill all your desires forever. I don't know about you, but I really want that. And then if you want that, here's what you have to do. And they kind of tell you it's this really weird form of salesmanship, of this communal identity building. And I could see how it offers certainty, connection, variety, growth, like all these like pretty core fundamental human needs. You can find them in there. But on the same token, they don't tell you why. They don't tell you why will this lead to that. And so I don't know. So there are definitely some useful things in there. There are definitely some things that just make zero sense to me. And kind of the way I ended up leaving it is that this isn't to speak about everything, but the way that the identity that one could choose to adopt that is Christian, described by that book, seems like this little bundle of light. Really, really, really pure, bright white light. But then within that orb, there are a bunch of like raggedy things sort of holding it together. And the thing about this light is that it will let you, or how do I put this? It will see for you. It will reveal the way for you. However, because the light is so bright, it will cast shadows, especially shadows on you. And it will occlude things from you that are incredibly important, especially those about yourself. And so, rather than providing people this ball of light, rather than providing them that, I think it is a lot better, rather than to provide light, simply to teach people to see. So, maybe some deep thoughts for just waking up in the morning or whatever, but I like the book, kinda. I guess I should really say I'm ambivalent about it. It was interesting. I've been meaning to read it for a long time. I need to get back to the guy who recommended it to me because it's been on many, many, many months. But I'm really hungry, so I'm gonna go make breakfast. Just got a package in the mail. This book. So rather than go on my entire philosophical diatribe that occurred as a result of looking at the table of contents of this book, I'm going to talk about some different ways to attack books. So first thing I always do is look at the table of contents. How are the ideas organized? If the table of contents is not good, that's okay. Then you have to actually flip through the thing and look at that. So then you kind of get an idea for the structure. Maybe one chapter is more interesting than the others. It's actually, I think, really valuable to read books like blog posts. So you kind of just go and you idly read a blog post and you don't worry about reading the entire blog all at once. So that's, I think, in some cases, the correct way to read books, because you'll be like, ooh, that looks really interesting. So then you'll go and you'll read that, but then you'll be like, wait, what is this thing? And you'll realize, oh, that's in the previous chapter. And so, where if you'd started the book at chapter 1 and gone all the way through, by the time you'd gotten there, you wouldn't have gotten there. But instead, if you start here and put the question in your head, then that creates the space for the answer to fit in. So then you trace the book, you trace the right line of reasoning all the way back through it, because the authors don't always put it in the right order for you. They put it in what makes sense to them, or I don't know what other forces. But anyway, so that's kind of like the start is look at the table of contents. Are you going to read this like a blog, or are you going to read this like a regular book? Because they start with fundamentals right here, I trust this book actually to read it in order because it seems like a logical progression of thoughts. So next up is just kind of flip through the book. Some books, they put, especially books written in extremely journalistic style, they put the most important paragraphs at the start and at the end of the chapters. So you don't really need to read the chapter to understand the major point within the chapter. That happens with a lot of fluffy books that need to hit a certain page count. This book, I do not sense that. I actually think, given that the topic areas are huge, but the actual amount of space dedicated to each one is less than I might expect, that means that they've achieved a high degree of organization and simplicity. So chances are this entire book is worth at least glancing at, most of it really in-depth looking at. The other thing I've noticed is there are a lot of bolded words. So like there's a word, monotony. There's a lot of bolded words that are kind of like typical words, a lot of italicized and whatever. But there are a lot of bolded words, vocab words that, like, you know what the word is, but you might not know specifically what it means. So there's like a very explicit, organized way of thinking that is present through all of this with explicit definitions, which is always a great sign. So I'm definitely going to be reading this book in order. I'm definitely going to give each chapter a good amount of weight and give it a big chance before I decide maybe to skip it. And so other than that, the last thing to do, depending on the book, not fiction books, but like, look at the end, read the end, and see. So this is where all the thinking ends up, because a really good book will have no fluff. A really good book will have a bunch of ideas arranged in ways that the structure amplifies the nature of the ideas and the understanding of everything that you're picking up the book for. Lots of books don't do this. Lots of books are actually pretty terrible, or at least suboptimal. So off an initial appraisal, this one looks pretty good. What resonates with me is right here on the back. The guy who wrote this book is the guy who designed the Apple Macintosh. Raskin, however, demonstrates that many current interface paradigms are dead ends, and that making computers significantly easier to use requires new approaches. That is precisely what I think. That is exactly what I think. So this book is probably going to suck up the majority of my day. I actually think that this, if I got to redefine the software industry, I would rename a bunch of professions and organize them completely differently, because I think it's doing us a lot of disservice, but that's a huge rant I will go on another day. For now, I gotta read through this. Oh, final decision to make is, am I going to, so some books, you gotta take notes, like they're just that good. You gotta repeat ideas, put them together, glue them together, get them down in your own way, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes that means when you start a book, you do way too much stuff. So you do way too much writing, and then you burn out on the book. And you stop because you're like, it's too much work, all this is too good. That's not a good way to do it. And then the other thing is not writing anything at all. Just reading through it once. If I read through this once, I will probably be like, wow, those ideas are great. And then I will forget about them ultimately. So I don't think I should write super densely about any given thing. I also don't think I should lightly read through it. So what I'm going to do instead is, after each chapter, so definitely get down the definitions of all the bolded words, and then kind of understand, ooh, this is precisely how they define it. Here's how they fit together. The other thing is, after the end of each chapter, go back and write my big impressions, write the most valuable things and where they're located and all kind of that, and build my own internal table of contents. And then I will probably reference that a lot as I'm going through and I'm actually building sites. But then this is a book that potentially it would be good enough that I need to go reread it in another 6 months once some of those things have sunk in, because then other things will stand out. Eventually, I hope that I've identified all of the things that are good, discarded all the things that are bad, and absorbed them such that I don't need to read the book to act in accordance with what is inside of it. But so that's the ultimate goal of reading a book like this. programming as a profession actually has two audiences. There is the computer, and then there are people. And so this is the communication with people, and code that communicates really well with computers doesn't always communicate that well with people. Oftentimes clarity for one comes at the expense of the other. There are a bunch of considerations for people. They're by far the harder part. And so I'm very bullish on this book right now. And I lost my good pen, so I'm gonna have to go find my light. There we go. Back in my car, I'm heading out for my parents. I haven't gotten very far through that UX book because every like fourth of a page I stop. I'm like, oh my god, I will completely redesign entire feature sets or rethink some existing things. And that book is amazing. It's gonna take me a while to get through. Back home, gotta get this vlog together, then I'm gonna hit the hay because I've got an early meeting tomorrow morning.